Hey, this is Beverly Bozeman, and welcome to another episode of About Her Ministry. And today I have with me Apostle Heather Collins. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We really do appreciate you stopping by to chat with us. And I just know that you have some words of wisdom and some revelations for the people who will be watching the broadcast. So we are just ready to dive into this. The very first question that I wanted to ask is, what is your role as an apostle?
I am the senior pastor and founder of Kingdom Life Worship Center in Farmville, North Carolina, where that is my primary ministry, if you will, is to be a pastor to the people that God has given me. And then as an apostle, my husband and I jointly, we oversee a few churches, about 12 of them along the eastern seaboard of the United States, from Delaware all the way down to Florida. And we provide training, teaching, equipping the people of God to be able to serve their people. We offer a school of the prophets, so we teach a prophetic institute, which runs about 14 weeks, so that people are knowledgeable in their gifts and their abilities. And then, of course, we help those who are called to establish, set up and establish as the Lord leads.
That's awesome. So in regards to the prophetic class, are there like books and worksheets and workshops, or how does that work as far as the classes?
We are a school. So Chief Apostle Collins has written a manual. It is the Elijah Encounter School of the Prophets. And so he has a manual, which of course we do pull off of other books to use along with it. But it is a series of modules that each person goes through. There are tests, there are quizzes, there are papers that have to be written. And then there are practicals, which are actual applications where the individual is actually prophesying in a setting which is now judged by the senior prophets as is deemed by the word of God.
That is awesome. So it's like school, real school.
School.
A's and B's, and you're tardy, so we're gonna write you up. You go to D Hall. Oh my gosh, that's very interesting. Okay.
Well, we try to get them to understand that you have to take your gift seriously. And the Bible says to study, to show yourself approved, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. And we know that there's a lot of rogue prophets, a lot of rogue preachers out here that are just kind of doing their thing by the seat of their pants, but that's not God's best. So if we offer it to them in excellence, then they will hopefully grab it and excel in it in excellence.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. And I agree with that. I don't, have any prophetic gifts like that, but I think I have seen enough people who call themselves prophets, and you can kind of tell, like, okay, you just read a fortune cookie off of that one. You are prophet lying right there. So that's really awesome that they would have access to a prophetic school, a school of prophets. I like that. I think that's really gonna bring, of course, what's the word I'm looking for? It'll bring clarity to their gifting, and
absolutely
make people more receptive if they know what they're talking about, because anybody can fake it. But
that's right.
Awesome. I love that. I really do. So my next question is, when God revealed that he wanted you to minister, what was that like? What was that period like?
Well, for me, I grew up in the church. And so I often refer to my mother, Elder Thompson, as my Mordecai, because she taught me and she trained me. And for a long time, that was all that we could do, was church. And then, of course, when you get grown and you go off to college and you say, I'm just not going to do this anymore, you find yourself doing your own thing until God is like, no, come here. This is what I called you to do. And so it was a really humbling experience for me, because he literally stopped me in my tracks and shifted the entire trajectory of my world. I am a graduate of Hampton University in Virginia, and I was getting ready to go to Harvard Law School. And the Lord said, no, I didn't call you to be an attorney. He said, they have enough of those. He says, I've called you to minister my word. And so at that point in time, it was really a major encounter where my will was actually being broken and I had to surrender to the things of God. And so I did, and I found myself in education, in my secular world. So I'm very much still an attorney between children and faculty and different things, but more so with ministry in the forefront. So I knew he was calling me to be a pastor, but I didn't want to. But when I got here to North Carolina, I realized that the people needed teaching. The people needed an opportunity to really delve into and explore the Word of God. And so that's how we kind of got started. I said yes, but I said yes with the conditions of, okay, I'm just going to teach Bible study. Let's just do a small group Bible study and maybe God will be okay with my, semi-yes. But he was like, no, you got to go all the way. So I won't say that it was easy because there's so many unknowns, and it's really trusting God with your life, not only with your life, but with the life of your family. And so, but we're here, and God has sustained us now 10 years, September, and he has blessed us tremendously.
Awesome. So did the ministry bring you to North Carolina?
No, my first husband brought me to North Carolina. I met my ex-husband in Virginia, and he got a position in North Carolina in Greenville. And so we moved from Virginia to North Carolina. And so we were married for about 11 years. And unfortunately, that did not work. And so we divorced, and he went back to Virginia, but I stayed in North Carolina because by that time, the ministry was already birthed.
Awesome.
Mm.
Awesome. So I can imagine that was a really big transition from Virginia to North Carolina in terms of the social life and economics. Was it like going into a different world?
Absolutely. It was a shock factor for a long time because I'm a city girl, originally born and raised in Connecticut, and then from Connecticut to Virginia. But Virginia is close enough to Washington, D.C., where you have that life and you have that activity. But honey, when I crossed over into Pitt County, I was like, whoa, what a name for a county. And so it was definitely an adjustment, but I've come to appreciate the pit because from the pit, you go to the palace. So even in that, there is revelation if you endure the process.
That's it. I love it. I love it, from the pit to the palace. Absolutely. I love it. Okay, so my next question, I love that. I'm gonna have to jot that down. Hold on. That's the title of your next book.
Oh, I receive it.
From the pit to the palace. Yes, ma'am. The stories you can tell.
Yes.
So what is the hardest part of being an apostle?
The hardest part of being an apostle for me is that I, Heather, is required to love the way God loves. I'm required to forgive. I'm required to embrace, even after being hurt, even after being disappointed, even after being let down. Experiencing those things does not exclude me from the assignment. It doesn't justify me doing my own thing or seeking revenge or saying, I don't want to do it anymore. I am required. I am compelled by the gospel of Jesus Christ over my life that no matter what I face, no matter what I go through, that he has called me to this place. And at the end of the day, if I tap into him, then he can provide me with healing and restoration and wholeness so that even though I may have experienced those things, I can still go on and love with clean hands and a pure heart. That is the hardest part because anybody can shout. Anybody can speak in tongues. Anybody, as we say, can fake it till they make it. But the truth of the matter is, at the end of that, is there true love and forgiveness? And yeah, that's the hardest part of it all.
I can imagine. I know God has equipped you to be able to do that because that's really hard. when, you know, people treat you whatever way they feel like, and you have to still love them as God says so. You can't get them back. You're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to treat them like they treat you, because it makes you no different from them. They, you know, other people are always watching. I tell my husband all the time, somebody is always watching.
Always.
Oh,
and there's a standard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a standard that we have to meet that others have no clue what that standard looks like. And I know what people have seen, and I apologize to the people that are listening to this broadcast that have seen false representation of who Christ is and have experienced hurts even from the hands of leaders, because leaders have done some things to people that they ought to apologize for. But there is a standard that apostles, that pastors, that those fivefold ministry gifts, we have to meet up, and we have to do it the way Christ says do it. And sometimes it's not always easy. Paul says, I beat my flesh, right, into subjection daily, right, so that I can be the best, and I'm paraphrasing, so that I can be the best representation of Jesus Christ in the earth. And so that is my prayer, that is my desire, and that is my hope, that when people come in contact with me, that they feel that genuine, that love, you know, and even the peace of God, that when they left my presence, they left knowing that they've had an encounter with one of his.
Right. That's really a job, but the reward is so great. Not just the reward of our obedience, but the reward of knowing that somebody else has learned that it's possible, it's doable for them. If she can do it, as nasty as she used to be, or after what she has just endured, I know I can do it too. So that's a reward in itself. That's awesome. I love it. So what have you learned? What's like one of the major things that you have learned in your role as an apostle? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be ministry related. It could be, you know, personally.
I'll say that forgiveness is key. Even before I became an apostle, I had a life-changing experience. I suffered a stroke, which left me paralyzed on my left side. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, my mouth was twisted. Had to go through therapy and had to learn how to walk again, talk again, feed myself. For a long time, I was in a wheelchair. Went to therapy, and therapy said, it doesn't look good, and we don't think that we're going to be able to get you back into the swing of things the way that you were. They said I wouldn't drive, I wouldn't wear my high heels again, all of that stuff. It was just a bad place, I thought, in my life at that time. I also, during that time, because my health declined, I lost my job, and then I lost my marriage at that time as well. Everything happened in the span of 2 to 3 months because it didn't look like I was getting better. And at that time, my husband decided that he didn't get married to take care of a sick wife. And so I had 2 little boys at that time as well. And it was just an amazing experience to be in this place where, okay, God, I don't understand what you're doing. But in that season that he had me in that place, he dealt a lot with who I was as a person. He dealt with the fact that there were times that I was nasty. There were times that I was mean. There were times that I would cut you and you would walk away and you wouldn't even know that I have cut you with my words, because I had hurt and resentment and anger and misunderstood feelings on the inside of me that I had never dealt with and didn't allow God to deal with. But in that place where I'm paralyzed, I can't just run, I can't get busy, I can't, push my attention towards other things and not deal with Heather. It was at that time that God dealt with me, and he dealt with me with forgiveness. It was the best thing. He dealt with me with forgiveness. He dealt with me with my attitude, with my outlook. He dealt with me even to the mindset of, you're going to need somebody. You're going to need people. A lot of times, we're Black women, we're independent, we're strong, and we got it. And we think that we can do it on our own. But he even put the animals in the ark 2 by 2.
That's right.
He sent the disciples out 2 by 2. So it was never his intention for us to do things on our own. But somewhere in our mindset, because of the hurt and the pain that we deal with, we all of a sudden become an island unto ourselves. And we close ourselves off from receiving genuine love, genuine help, genuine assistance from other people. And so during that season of my life, oh God, I tell people having that stroke was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. It was a Job experience. I lost everything at the same time, but I found myself in God, and I found who he really wanted me to be, not the ideologies of society and what people had imposed on me, or even hurt had tried to shape me to be in. So it was forgiveness. It was learning how to love genuinely. And it was learning how to understand that people need people, and you can't do everything by yourself.
That is awesome. God is an awesome wonder, isn't he?
Yes.
And you have an awesome testimony. And I just know that whoever watches this, whenever, because it's going to be on for the whole world to see for as long as it's up there, people will be blessed many times over, because something that you said that I was talking to my husband about this morning, we as Black women especially, we carry a lot of unforgiveness, a lot of burden, a lot of hurt, because we don't really have anybody to talk to. We're not supposed to be weak,
vulnerable.
We're not supposed to. We come from very strong women. So at the same time, we do need people that we can talk to, but we don't necessarily have that. So thank you for sharing that and letting everybody know that it's okay to really share what you're going through, the pain and the hurt. It turns on into ourselves, if that makes sense. Whatever it is that we're going through, it turns over and it turns over, and it just builds up more and more, and it just becomes so volatile, and it becomes so acidic that we become sick in some kind of way. And so we just really have to do something about that. So
we become toxic. And when I was in the hospital for 6 days, they wanted to release me to a rehab facility because I needed 24-hour care. I didn't want to do that because I had 2 boys. And so they agreed that they would let me go home if my family could provide the 24-hour care. And I had to agree to go to therapy, Beverly. And I was like, I'm not going to nobody's therapy. I'm not going to talk to nobody. Can't nobody help me? Ain't nothing wrong with me. Why would I need to go to therapy? And they said, well, you don't have a stroke dealing with stress of this magnitude, because mine was stress induced of this magnitude. And you not need to talk to somebody, or we not need to figure out what is going on the inside of you, because now you're prone for it to happen again. And so I went to therapy. I went to the therapist that they assigned, and he was a Caucasian man. He was a Caucasian believer. And I'll leave his name out because I don't have his permission to share it. But the first 2 times that I went, we wasted a whole hour. I mean, he would ask me questions and I would give him 1-word answers. And so on the 3rd meeting, he said, how are you doing today? And I said, I'm fine. And he must have had enough of me. And he looked at me and he said, when are you not ever fine? He said, when do you give yourself permission not to be fine? When do you give yourself permission to feel and to deal with everything that is going on in your life? Just because you're having a day that means that you're not fine does not mean that you are any less of who you are. And from that day, he began to break down those walls and allow me the space. And I allowed myself the space to be open and to be healed in those areas that hurt.
Wow, that's awesome. We do need permission to not be fine sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and not be badgered or belittled because of that. That's
Right.
that's awesome. That is so awesome. I love it. What's the best advice that you have received while in the ministry?
Woo. Um, I will say to, and I know it sounds really spiritual, but to follow the voice of God.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, in following the voice of God, you're going to disappoint some people. But if you follow the voice of God, you'll never disappoint God and you'll never be led astray. Oftentimes, we're moved by our feelings and our emotions that we have for people, and we make decisions based upon the person, but we don't make decisions based upon the leading of God. And I have been guilty of that. I have been guilty of making decisions and then saying, okay, God, now I need you to work it out. He was like, well, I didn't give you permission to do that in the first place. And so, um, so now I have to backtrack and backpedal, with that person in order for them to understand, listen, I made the wrong decision, but now I'm going to fix it. So if you follow the voice of God the first time, it alleviates us having to go backwards and try to fix things that would have been done correct the first time. And then understand, you're not going to please the people all the time. If you're a people pleaser, you're in the wrong field. You're not here to do ministry because you just cannot please the people all the time. No matter how good of a leader Moses was, no matter how he delivered them out of Egypt and was bringing them to a place flowing with milk and honey, the people still complained. So you're not going to get it right all the time. And the people are not always going to be happy with what you do.
Mhm. That's awesome. And something you said made a whole lot of sense. It's about pleasing God. And, ultimately, we want to please him because we don't have to stand before any of the people. We have to stand before God. That's the ultimate ending right there. But even while we're here, we're not serving anybody if we're trying to please them, because
Right.
it can mold us and shape us to get us to do and say what it is that they need us so that they can stay in their sin and their muck and their mire. But if we are following the leading of God and doing what he's saying, those who we are called to assist and help to change or do what they're supposed to do, they're going to be positively affected. So that's some awesome advice. That's really awesome advice. So, how do you prepare for a sermon?
Well, my husband says that we study for our knowledge and revelation, but then when we stand up to preach, we preach what we hear. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes, I have a meditation that normally is off of music. Okay. I am a music buff. I love it. And so oftentimes, based upon something that I've heard minister to me on the radio or on my playlist, I then begin to link scriptures to that. I know it's kind of weird, but it works for me. And I begin to study those scriptures. I begin to meditate on that word as well. And so that's how I prepare. I also pray, of course, God, what would you have me to say to the people that you're sending me to? What is it that they need specifically? And there are times that I don't hear anything. I can study. I don't have a note on my notepad. I don't have a Post-it note with nothing written on it. And I have to stand up. And as I begin to stand up and open my mouth, he literally speaks through me. I don't like it, but it's the way he uses me to minister. And 9 times out of 10, what I have read, what I have studied, what has been downloaded in my spirit, for me, is what he'll end up using for me to be able to minister to the people.
That's an awesome way to prepare your sermons. I like that. Just sometimes I think we have to come out of traditionalism and doing what so-and-so does because they are popping. And we just have to do what's according to our spirit, what God places in our spirit, because it might be the very thing that causes you to stand out from the rest and get those people to listen so that they can hear what God is saying for their lives. That's awesome. I love that.
Well, I am a working mother. So I work 40 plus hours a week for the community college system. I have a total of 3 kids at home and a bonus son. We are traveling for sports and, basketball. I don't have time to sit in my church office for 6 hours and just study the way that I would love to. And so I realized that it's about quality time with him and not necessarily quantity. And he accepts and receives my diligence to spend quality time with him versus quantity, which could just be in vain. And so as I'm traveling, as I'm working, it's a constant communication with him as I go through my day.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. I love that. Quality over quantity any day. So when you unwind on your day off, if you have any, so to speak, what is that like?
Woo, retail therapy. Listen, I love me a pair of shoes and a purse and a heartbeat. So oftentimes it is retail therapy. And then believe it or not, I'm a homebody. I can be home and not leave, and it just does not bother me at all. Mm-hmm. So I like movies, and that is just kind of how I unwind. I am a gamer, believe it or not. Yes, I will. I play more so on my phone now, but if I get a chance with my boys and we're playing the Xbox or the PS4, I'll play with them. I'll learn how to play a new game because I love it. Mm-hmm. So that's just kind of how I unwind and detox and just let my hair down and just let the day roll off.
Wow, that's very interesting. I think you're the very first minister who is a gamer. That's very interesting. I love that too. So tell us one thing that people would be surprised to know about you.
I'm an introvert.
Ah.
I am an introvert with extrovertish tendencies. But I am very much an introvert. I have to internally think, process, and detach from people in order for me to be ready to go back at it again. And like I said, that's why I'm okay with being home, because I'm an introvert.
Awesome. That's very interesting. You would not think that someone who seems to be as outgoing as you is really an introvert with extroverted tendency. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So my next question is, and it's also the final question, is if you could ask any one person in the Bible a question, who would it be and what would you ask?
Wow. That's a good question. Wow. I think I would have to go to Deborah. And because she was the first female judge in the book of Judges. And she had a lot of responsibility on her. Barak wouldn't even go to battle without her. And so my question would be, how did she handle the responsibility of her assignment? How did she handle being balanced and fair? I guess you said one question, but I would probably take my moment and ask her. I would want to observe what made her so different that the men of God were willing to follow her and to go into battle with her.
Wow. She's the type of person that I want to know more about as well. I only know just a little, but I think she's enough, she has enough interest, enough interesting characteristics that I would really want to not necessarily ask her questions, because one question will lead to another.
Right.
She's like, look, girl, I got stuff to do. Send it to me in the email or something. But she's very, very interesting. I love that. Okay. Awesome. Well, that's about it for this particular episode. We thank you so much for stopping by. So tell the people how they can connect with you on social media.
Awesome. You can find us at Kingdom Life Worship Center on Facebook, or on YouTube at Kingdom Life Worship Center. I do have a personal page, which is Heather Parks Collins, or you can follow the HDC ministry page on Facebook. If you have questions or want to reach out, you can call 252-320-9707. That's 252-320-9707, and we'll be happy to talk with you. And if you want to send an email, you can send it to hdcministries at hdcministries.org. And we will get that to you so that we can respond. Let me rephrase that, hdcministries@gmail.com, and we'll respond to your email.
Awesome. Okay. Do you have any closing words that you want to share with the people?
I just want to say thank you to you for the invitation to be here. It's been a pleasure and an honor to share with you guys on today. I want to encourage you to keep spotlighting the people of God. And even in that, I speak blessings over you and your household and your ministry. And to the people of God, I just want to say to continue being your authentic self. God made you, so be the very best you that you can be, because the world needs you. Not a copy, not a duplicate, but the authentic you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love that. So you guys heard it first. Be your authentic self, because the world needs you. Thank you so much again, Apostle, for stopping by and chatting with us today. And it is my hope that you guys are hearing anything, a seed that is planted in your spirit, or some part of her testimony that is giving you hope, so that you can continue to run on or make the life changes or say the yes that God has been calling you to say. That is just my hope for you today. Be sure to check out the next episode of About Her Ministry. And until then, be sure to release your genius, pull off the impossible every day, and let's be glamorous, godly girls.